616. It's 616, 616. No idea what I'm talking about.
Wow. Like, we really do hear from you. And you really are like orchestrating things. You know how to make sense of it all. And you really are taking us on an incredible journey.
The Father began to speak to us, I think in April, about taking 3 months to go to Alaska. And what he said about that was that he wanted to teach us to rest. But we're going to hit a couple of points in it that are key to the Michigan part of our story. And he told us to begin our journey to Alaska on 6/16. That's June 16th. And it just so happens that on 6/16, we were staying with some friends in Colorado Springs. One of the friends shares with us this podcast. And that minister's name is Damon Thompson. You may or may not be familiar with him. So we thought, okay, we'll give it a listen. And we begin to listen, and what unfolds over coming days and weeks and months is that Damon Thompson had pivoted his podcast and his teachings away from what he had been teaching. And right about that time that we began this journey to learn from God about rest, Damon begins this whole 3-month thing teaching about God's rest. Damon also kept referencing the number 616. And we found that really interesting because we heard personally, not from someone who shared a prophetic word for us, but personally, we should leave on 6/16 to begin this journey of rest. And on 6/16, we're introduced to a podcast by a guy who starts teaching about God's rest, who has this really special connection to the number 616. The only thing was, he only referenced it. He wouldn't ever explain why. In fact, it was such an important number that he has services on Friday evenings that he starts at 6:16 p.m., but again, he never would explain why. He just constantly referred to this number 616.
But then whispers of Michigan started happening eventually, which was like, what is going on? What is happening? And when I say whispers, I'm just meaning just the Holy Spirit kisses, if you would, just little, poetic things that are happening. And that was where I was like, I have no idea what's happening now.
March 18th, we're going to bed and we read the Bible before we go to bed. Open up to this verse. The Lord's righteousness will shine like a garden in early spring. I feel like the Father wants to say something to us on the first day of spring. So I called out to my phone, which was across the room, and I said, when is the first day of spring? And it says back to me, the spring equinox is March 19th, tomorrow. And I'm like, whoa, that's crazy. So then we go to bed, high anticipation. Turn on a Damon Thompson podcast. He says this phrase, I hear the Spirit of the Lord beckoning us. Stand at the crossroads and ask for the ancient paths, and you will find rest for your souls. And then he stops himself and he says, that is Jeremiah 6:16. That's why we start our services at 6:16. Stand at the crossroads and ask for the ancient paths, and you will find rest for your souls. I'm blown away because this number has been coming up, this whole past 9 months or whatever, and he would reference it a bunch, but never explain it. And all of a sudden, a podcast that was recorded on the first day of spring is released, and he's explaining Jeremiah 6:16. And I quickly rewind it on my phone, and I screen record to send it to Ashley, that little snippet. And as he says it again, that's Jeremiah 6:16, stand at the crossroads and ask for the ancient paths. I look at the phone and I realize it says 9:16 a.m. as it's recording, and he's saying that. And I realize, wait, it's currently 6:16 in Alaska, which is the place that the whole 6:16 thing started for us. The whole thing began with Alaska. So that was mind-blowing. I send it to Ashley.
I think it was just like, wow, like we really do hear from you. and you really are like orchestrating things, and you like, you know how to make sense of it all, and you really are taking us on an incredible journey. So I would say that's where my heart was at.
So I send her the screen recording, and a few minutes later, I'm searching something. I was looking for a ministry thing that had nothing to do with anything that we're talking about, but I was just Google searching for this ministry, and I couldn't remember the name of it. So I'm looking up ministries like it, and I come across this ministry called Ancient Paths. I'm like, that's interesting. And I click on their website, and they have Jeremiah 6:16 as the first thing you see on their website. Then I noticed that they're located in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And what's curious is the area code for Grand Rapids, Michigan is 616. This is all 20, 30 minutes tops.
So in this time, like, we're not discussing this with anyone. I get a text, and it's from one of his sisters, and she's like, randomly just says, so I just had this random dream that you guys moved to Michigan. And she was like, I don't know anything else about the dream or what happened, but I just know you guys just moved to Michigan. And I was I was besides myself. I mean, I didn't tell her like the significance to that. I don't think I told her just then.
We just said, that's interesting.
Yeah, I was like, no way. But in my heart, I was like, oh my gosh, no way. That's crazy.
All of those events, the hearing the podcast at 6:16 Alaska time, sending it to her, looking up the 616 area code, finding Grand Rapids, Michigan, accidentally finding Ancient Paths Ministry with Jeremiah 6:16, which is located in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and then my sister texting us, had a random dream that you guys moved to Michigan.
So then from that, there came a point where Borin felt led that he should go to Alabama, which is where this ministry, Damon Thompson, is. And it was like last minute trip, and it just so happened that he was going to be going on 6/16, which was also Father's Day.
Yeah.
So that was just so crazy because, it was last minute.
Stand at the crossroads and ask for the ancient paths. And we're praying constantly. Mm-hmm. Where's the crossroads? What is the ancient path? I just felt like, it's Father's Day. I'm going to get with my father. And I felt like, I'll go to Mobile, Alabama. Damon Thompson's ministry is there. I feel like that's where I'm supposed to be. And maybe even I'll hear something that will cue me off on an answer for what is the crossroad, where's the ancient path. 6/16 was a Sunday, again, Father's Day. The day before that, on Saturday, the people that were hosting me took me out to Dauphin Island Beach. I post a picture about it. The next morning, Sunday morning, 6/16, Father's Day, my grandmother tells me, oh, I used to love taking your dad to that beach when we lived there when he was a little boy. I'm like, what? I didn't know this, but my dad lived in that area, would go to that beach when he was like 2 years old or something like that. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, wow, that's amazing. I talked to my dad about it. He's like, yeah, I love Dauphin Island. And I was like, well, what do you remember about it? He goes, oh, no, I'm not talking about when I was a kid. I don't remember anything. I'm talking about when I was an adult and I moved to Mobile to do some contracting work. I'm like, no way. On 6/16, on Father's Day, I just so happened to be in a place that I didn't know. My father lived 2 times in his life. And then this interesting thing happened. I'm sitting in the living room with the family that's hosting me on Father's Day, 6/16. And again, these 6/16 people. Like, they go to church at 6/16 to listen to the guy who talks about 6/16 all the time. At the same time, they had a baseball game on college baseball. They were watching the team that was playing. The game had finished, and such as it happens with sports games, when they're over, they'll kind of wrap up and just bump into the next sport that's happening. And so we're talking, and all of a sudden, it switches from baseball to golf. A golf tournament. And I'm not paying attention until the guy says, as it's got this camera view, drone flying over this beautiful golf course, And the announcer says, if you're joining us now, welcome in to beautiful Grand Rapids, Michigan. And I just stop and I'm like, 616. It's 616, 616. And of course, they're like, no idea what I'm talking about. And I have to explain, today's 616. I'm with you 616 people. And I came here to hear about where the crossroads is that we can ask for the ancient paths. And Grand Rapids, which is the area code 616, just pops up on your TV as we're talking about these things. Mm-hmm. So in that moment, what I felt was the shift of my faith, really. I believe you're actually going to relocate us to Michigan.